kid, what you doing watching this stupid film? Don't you want to have fun playing?
Legend of Zelda, and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad.
Hey folks, have a nice flight.
Back up!
Is that Italian?
Next. Won't do this handling in combat. Without arms.
Dave, we got your golden axe.
Where's my ass?
What are you looking at, nut boy?
Let me tell you that folks near the human endeavor.
Girls are doing with other girls. Some get together in groups.
Hey, stupid! What kind of a meal is that?
It's called mental will.
Wrong answer, man.
It's going to be a long night for law enforcement.
Want to see more?
No more. Sure you don't have room for another little bonus level?
And now, this.
Hey there, nice to see ya. Starting off with a question for ya.
You game?
I do. Enough to get it stuck on my skin. And I can still remember the arrival of the Nintendo Entertainment System action set, complete with Zapper and Duck Hunt Mario combo. But there was another game there, a bright shiny gold cartridge that a young kid like me couldn't help but be drawn to. Slamming that thing into the NES opened a whole new world for me, one of fighting rock-spitting octopi and cutting down dog-faced gremlins. The escapism that it provided was invaluable, and it's one of my favorite art mediums because it requires visual and audio arts interweaved with storytelling to create a single awesome product. Or dog do if it had this rainbow on it, and we didn't have much money to buy games when I was growing up, so we rented a lot. And it's incredible how much the covers of these games could affect whether or not I nabbed it. How could you not pick this one up? And would you ever think that you'd be playing this one looking at this cover? And there is one thing I never really thought about. What brought my parents to buy it? Did they see an ad on TV? Was it perusing a magazine? It had to be marketed to them somehow. It wouldn't have been the first commercial for the system, this special gem.
Will it be you? Will your family be the first to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System?
And it probably wasn't this commercial with this amazing goblin of a man.
Zelda!
Which way to go?
Good time.
Hell, it wouldn't even be with the release of the second game, where they tried more of a dark fantasy vibe.
The Legend of Zelda continues. Defeat your enemies and save the kingdom.
Beware.
Some will help you, others will betray
I can
you.
restore life. I can get magic. I can.
I cannot help you.
Something Nintendo would repeat with many of their commercials. In Japan, their marketing was much lighter.
Smoke, smoke, every day. Smoke, smoke, every day. Smoke, smoke, every day. Smoke, smoke,
Different skew for a different audience. And it still gives me no idea what machinations pop from the ether to bring about me getting to make this noise over and over. But it's fun to see how marketers try and sell you their wacky game premises. For every Super Smash Bros. Happy Together, there is the PlayStation Dust Balls.
Hey, we're gonna roll outside. Wanna come? I can't. I'm watching carpet. Ow, but there's portable carpet. You've got to be kidding. Hey, have you ever heard of Dust Ball Kid? Not really. Well then, Believe me, when I tell you there's carpet, you can watch outside. Dun, 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 dun.
So I went down a rabbit hole of insane marketing ploys they did to get us to buy their bullshit. And most of these were fairly harmless and mainly just in poor taste. However, there were a few where something could have gone catastrophically wrong. And another type of advertising that's been on my mind.
Hello, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo.
From naming your baby after a hunter of dinosaurs to sacrificing goats to the gods, I'll cover all the horrible ways they've tried to sell you the beeps and boops before John Romero made you his bitch. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon. Alright, let's do a little thought experiment. It's 2002. This guy is web-slinging into theaters. You have a whole 20 gigabytes on your iPod. You have a first-person shooter coming out. In the game, you play as a Native American who, while fighting Custer, is sucked through a portal into a terrifying world of dinosaurs. You will find and use lots of big-ass guns to tackle these large-ass lizards. Things will be blown to giblets. So, how do you sell it? What do you do to make sure that people remember the name of Turok? Would you make everyone remember that name by giving it to someone else? Because that's exactly what Acclaim did. Acclaim was releasing the third installment of their beloved Turok Dinosaur Hunter series called Turok Evolution. They were trying to drum up attention for the game as the company wasn't doing well.
Finish him.
They'd be filing for bankruptcy 2 years later. Acclaim first started the promotion in England where they offered residents less than $800 and a shiny new Xbox if they're willing to legally change their name to Turok. Turok is on the dating scene and he only wants dinosaurs. It only had to be a year and the winners could change their names back. There are actually some takers on it. BBC reported that more than 6,000 people had responded. Only 5 would be chosen. Nintendo would give names, ages, and occupations of the 5. This all comes from the idea of living billboards from Simon Cantrell. He was part of the Institute of Science and Marketing. He would say the very dystopian sounding phrase that one can now buy human identities just as they would a TV commercial or radio spot. But was this god-awful test a true success or failure? Connor Makar VG247 did a follow-up to try and hunt down some of the people who changed their names. He spoke with Andrew Block, who was responsible for the marketing stunt, and confirmed that 5 people had legally changed their name. He combed through both physical and digital records trying to find an inkling of just a single person who had changed it. Nothing was coming up, but what he ended up finding was far more interesting. He found one person willing to do an interview, and they only had 2 things to say. The first was that they were in fact one of the 5 winners of the contest. But these winners weren't just some randos. All of them were paid actors. No one had changed their name. It was all a stunt. This was confirmed further with a second interviewee. It was just another check for an acting gig. And sorry to those out there eager to have their cavities filled by Dr. Turok. A second interviewee let another nugget of marketing info out. They said the PR team for Star Wars Episode 1 had paid an actor to pose as a superfan who camped outside the theater. The PR team was drumming up false excitement. This was apparently the name of the game for marketing when the internet hit. It was no longer about getting seen in the papers, but about getting the content shared. You still see it today. Your algorithms will tend to favor stuff being shared with others over the content you view or like a lot. It wants continuing engagement. It wants your attention. And I can't say how good the game was. This is one I ended up skipping. I was too busy being blessed with Halo to bother with this one. But it looks like it wasn't too bad. Most critics give it a 70 out of 100 except for EGM kicking it down to a 50. And the accord seems to be that it's pretty fun mindlessly blasting. That is, when the enemy's AI isn't acting insane. And it didn't seem to make back the $8 million in marketing spent to make it, which flies in the face of what one of the Turok team members told Kotaku in 2014. They said, "Budgets were tight, so it was easier to invest in PR and word of mouth rather than spread our marketing budget too thin and not make an impact. All of the ideas were cheap to create from a concept perspective and scalable depending on how far we went." And I'll say that a marketing budget of $8 million is smaller than $13 million of something like Vice City that came out the same year. But you also can't act like you're some poor underdog fighting from the rafters. It was $8 million in marketing, my dude. And if you thought this was the only insane stunt Acclaim tried with names, just wait for the next one. So it's the same year, 2002. You've just released NBA Jam 2002 and All-Star Baseball. Can you guess what year? You have another game coming out. It's called Shadow Man, Toucan Coming. It's about an undead demon hunter in Louisiana who needs to go through the dead side to defeat a demon. It's dark and gory and dripping with 2000s edginess. So how do you sell it? Would you offer money to advertise on someone's gravestone? No? Good job! That's the reasonable response. Now let's look at Acclaims. They said, payments will be calculated with regard to the exposure of any particular headstone. So good news, the better the plot, the more they're willing to shill. Unfortunately, its target was poor families. Acclaim said they were trying to help by subsidizing burial costs, all out of the goodness of their hearts. The living saints. And I don't understand how someone poor could land an overly exposed plot. They never say how much they're actually going to cover, and based on the 800 pounds and the Xbox from the Turok debacle, it sounds like a lowball was in the plans all along. And this again was in the UK. And the response from the Church of England made me laugh. They said, there was enough fuss with plastic flowers in churchyards. These fucking plastic flowers, bro. The church says it wasn't going to happen. It wouldn't have anyway. The chairman of the advertising board stated that it would be illegal to put up the advertising without planning permission, issues of desecration notwithstanding. And a spokesman for Acclaim Entertainment said that it was appreciated that people may find its advertising offer offensive, but others may see it as a good way of procuring a subsidy to burial costs to give their loved ones a good send-off. He rejected any idea that it was a media stunt. They were adamant about the advertisement. This was the brainchild of the same guy who did the Turok advertising. In this case, he called it Deadvertising, and I'm just gonna let that one hang there. And you know what? Pun fully intended, cause I mean my puns, you spineless mother. Acclaim stated that it was all an April Fool's joke, a joke they made at the beginning of March. And I'm surprised they didn't enter the dead side from the amount of foot they had to choke on. And this was actually right before the Turok stunt. Another controversy ultimately amounting to nothing. And it's another one I've never played. I know the first one felt horrible to control, and it seemed the Toucan one is better since it sits at a middling score of 68 on Metacritic. And this would not be the last of their crazy advertising. In between these two stunts, they claimed that they were releasing 20 pigeons during the 2003 Wimbledon Championships. They would all be spray painted with the Acclaim logo. Why pigeons? They often descend onto courts while the players are bopping the baps. And I found out while making this video that they sometimes keep a hawk around to chase the pigeons away. The more you know. And this would promote Virtua Tennis 2, which I'll say it was a banger on the Dreamcast. And Acclaim planned to release the pigeons during a warm-up where they would target fans and fly in their faces. Eventually, they would fly back home. Homing pigeons. So we got birds in people's faces. Surely nothing could go wrong. And honestly, I have no idea. There are no reports of this actually happening, and the officials for Wimbledon didn't seem too bothered. Acclaim would pull another stunt called Bloodvertising for their upcoming game, Gladiator Sword of Vengeance. And I don't need to tell you what this game is about. Already know. They'd put up posters in bus shelters that would see blood. It was just red dye dispensed from cartridges behind a plastic sheet. It would slowly spill onto the streets, dripping into the pavement like a Jackson Pollock. Acclaim assured the press that they would have a cleanup crew after 6 days, and honestly, it just sounds really inconvenient. I'd love to see them pull this in the air of the white sneaker, and no info on if this one actually happened. It's probably just there to drive up more controversy. And Acclaim has one more up their sleeves, but I'm saving that one for later as it could have actually endangered lives. But for the next one, we'll need a lift. So fast forward, it's 2011, you have a new military-based shooter coming out. You're part of a resistance force in the US fighting against an invading and unified Korea. So how are we marketing this one? Did you picture 99 Luft balloons? During the Game Developers Conference being held in downtown Southern California, THQ released 10,000 red balloons. This was supposed to simulate the method South Korea would send messages of hope to North within the game. They would also stage a fake protest against North Korea, and you could already see why this portrayal of real-life entities would cause some controversy, but it only got worse when the weather picked up. The wind and rain would carry the balloons off towards the bay across the gray skies. The waters beneath the Golden Gate Bridge are their final resting place. And as you can expect, there was a lot of outrage. Some directed it towards GameStop as the balloons held leaflets to promote the new pre-order for the game. One resident sent an email to them that said, "Your balloon campaign was a stupid thing to do in a city surrounded on 3 sides by water. You should be held accountable for the waste." And I've nothing more to say than, yep. GameStop quickly tried to distance themselves from the spectacle, saying they knew nothing about it. THQ went into damage control and made a statement. They said, "The balloons released at the Homefront Rally event today were made from 100% organic product and are 100% biodegradable. The balloons have no history of causing any environmental pollution on land or in water, and although we're confident that there will be no harm to the environment, we've retained a cleanup crew to remove any potential lingering debris." And Trash Talk FCM, the firm behind the stunt, didn't instill much hope. They said that they had expected the balloons to disintegrate before hitting the ground, and the leaflets would fall on those at the rally. The marketing firm would be fined $7,000 for the stunt by the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board. And despite the balloons possibly being biodegradable, sea life like whales and turtles would get caught up in the latex. And not in the way your uncle does on Tuesday nights. And the crazy part is that they're already getting over another controversy. They had put out an ad on YouTube that looked like a real news bulletin. The less savvy thought it was real and freaked out. And the game did surprisingly well despite or thanks to its controversy. It sold 2.6 million copies in the first few weeks. And I don't know if that covered what I'm guessing is an enormous budget since it used the Crytek system. Another one I never played since military shooters were a dime a dozen at this time, but it also got an okay 70 out of 100 overall from critics. And I'm beginning to wonder what game didn't. But our next game did break into the 80s. Another military shooter, but one that was third person and far more covert. And unfortunately, there'd be those out there who wish they hadn't done such a bang-up job. Heading back to 2010, you have the 5th sequel to the wildly successful Splinter Cell games. You play as Sam Fisher, who is given missions of assassination, extraction, and sabotage for the US government. Stealth is the name of the game. He finds one of the men responsible for his daughter's death and fights his large mercenary group, trying to end them once and for all. So what would you do to get this one out there? Would you endanger lives around a public space? This is what happened to the Auckland's Viaduct Basin of New Zealand. It's an area with a myriad of people due to its happening nightlife, and it was Friday around 8 p.m., so there was going to be a lot of people. A man would show up outside the Degree Bar. He'd be slinking around with bandages on his hand like he was Darkman. Patrons would catch sight of what he was holding and get terrified. One would scream, "He's got a gun!" He would brandish the gun and point it at scared onlookers while some of them would duck for cover. The police would show up soon after. Luckily for the man, the New Zealand police took a different approach from their American counterparts, and they asked questions before shooting. They soon found out that he was a hired actor. The Monaco Corporation was tasked with promoting the game and decided to hire a third party to do it for them. And this was the result. The marketing manager, Dwayne Mutu, said, "This was by no means an attempt to get cops down there and get this sort of exposure. We do apologize. We shouldn't have had guns down there. It was just marketing gone wrong." Senior Sergeant Ben Offner had a few things to say himself. He said, "We consider these types of stunts to be very ill-advised and have real concerns a similar one may one day end in tragedy." And that was a lot nicer than I would have put it. It's just f***ing stupid and there was no other outcome for this. If the dude had ended up with lead between his eyes, they'd be talking about it completely differently. And I see it as more PR bullshit. Exposure was the only thing they were hoping for. What else was there to gain? And the worst part is they didn't even need it. It was a well-established franchise. I played the shit out of these games. As expected, it did well, sitting at an 85 on Metacritic and selling 1.9 million units within 3 months. Just senseless, really. And Ubisoft, can we please get a new Splinter Cell with the Captain Laserhawk version of Sam Fisher? Keep the wheelchair, but let me control it remotely so I can crawl with Sam in some places and then set up traps with the chair. It would be so sick. But decidedly less sick was a PR campaign that ran for the game that would be steeped in controversy regardless of stunts. Or so they wanted you to think. We're back to 2010. You're coming out with a mediocre God of War clone loosely based on the Divine Comedy. You play as Dante, a Templar who's plunged into the circles of hell to rescue his wife from Satan. You got a lot of stuff you can really play with here. So how you promoting the game? Would you say bribes, sexual harassment, shame, and straight lies? This is what EA decided on for marketing. The edginess began light and only cranked up from there. First, they would blaspheme by offering $6.66 discounts for those who pre-ordered the game on 9/9/2009. More cute than anything. Soon after that would come the protests. At E3 in Los Angeles, a group of protesters would form outside calling themselves Salvationists Against Virtual and Eternal Damnation. 13 people claiming to be from a Ventura County church would hold up signs and yell. The signs would have phrases like "trade in your PlayStation for a PlayStation" and "EA equals Antichrist." They'd hand out brochures that warned, "A video game hero does not have the authority to save and damn. Only God can judge. And he will not judge the sinners who play this game kindly." And God help you if you played Bubsy 3D. Only the deepest circles of hell are reserved for them. The brochures would also link people to wearesavedgroup.org. It depicted crosses crushing the word sin and images of the King James Bible depicted in crude 90s website fashion. The website seemed designed to bash Dante's Inferno, but almost seemed to promote it. That's because it was. All the protesters were hired by a guerrilla marketing agency. They put on an improv protest pretending to be angry. EA wouldn't admit to it until enough people called them out. Journalists kept reporting the stunt was real. The Catholic Video Gamers blog put it perfectly when they said, "Gamers of all varieties will buy this product if it's, well, actually a good game. So instead of engaging in a shamelessly anti-Christian stunt to promote your poor excuse of a product, maybe you ought to work on making the game, you know, something better than a blatant God of War ripoff and make it, you know, something worthwhile." And no idea where this falls on the old centimeter. Pride? Hell if I know. The next sin would be pretty obvious. Lust. It would also be pretty obvious how this could all go wrong. EA held a contest during Comic-Con to promote the game. But how do you win the contest? Well, all you gotta do is walk up to these scantily clad women working their job at the booth and, as the poster says, commit acts of lust. You have to take a photo to prove it though, and tweet the pic to them. More pics, and the better the pic, the better the chance to win. And what would that prize be? Well, a night with the hottest girl at Comic-Con, dinner, booty, and more. All with a pic of what one Kotaku writer described as a butter chest. And I don't know what cheeks they've been clapping with clavicles, but we'll move on. They'd expand on it more in another poster, with one hand-picked winner getting dinner and a sinful night with 2 hot girls, a limo service, paparazzi, and a chest full of booty. They at least clarified the booty would be in a chest and not connected to a chest this time. But you can see how all this playful wording could lead to some pretty abhorrent treatment for these ladies. Pics exist out there, but I couldn't find them. The scrubbing is going well, it seems. And this led to a large amount of heat that EA was not prepared for. In a move that flew in the face of their controversial marketing, EA issued an apology. They would say, "We understand there's a lot of debate right now around our Sin to Win promotion at Comic-Con and wanted to clarify a few things. We created this promotion as part of our marketing efforts around the Circles of Lust, one of the 9 circles of hell. Each month, we will be focusing on a new circle of hell. This month is Lust. Costume reps are a tradition at Comic-Con. In the spirit of both the Circle of Lust and Comic-Con, we are encouraging attendees to tweet photos of themselves with any of the costume reps at Comic-Con here. Find us on Facebook or via email. Commit acts of lust is simply a tongue-in-cheek way to say take pictures with costumed reps. Also, a night of lust means only that the winner would receive a chaperone VIP night on the town with the Dante's Inferno reps, all expenses paid, as well as other prizes. We apologize for any confusion and offense that resulted from our choice of wording, and want to assure you that we take your concerns and sentiments seriously. We'll continue to follow your commitments, and please let us know if you have any other thoughts or concerns. Keep watching as the event unfolds, and we hope you'll agree that it was all done in the spirit of the good-natured fun of Comic-Con. And look, I think we all know what they intended. The real kicker in all of it was that the lucky man chosen was a writer from Gay Gamer who was, well, gay. He had sent a pic of himself standing next to one of the male booth babes. He proceeded to write a letter lambasting EA for engaging in sexist, misogynistic, and exploitative stunts. He also reminded the company that there's more than just straight dudes playing their games. He also mentions that even though the booth attendees are paid to deal with gawkers, others involved in the PR, production, and development aren't. Yet they still can get caught up in the crossfire. It was a classy way to handle it and pretty much said everything that needed to be said. And despite this huge crash out, they were still hitting the gas. They'd be doing this by sending out even more stuff. They would mail journalist cakes like severed limbs for gluttony. And not gonna lie, it's pretty sick. Best birthday cake.
Yes!
A month or so after that, they would engage in wrath. They'd send another series of packages to journalists. Inside those packages was a wooden box.
What's in the box?
A haunting song brought forth from hell's own choir blasted from inside the box. It would repeat hellish words in a Stygian tongue. It would sing,
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and let you down.
As you can tell, this was during the time of the Rick Roll fad. The song wouldn't stop playing though. It would just keep going on in a loop. A hammer was inside the box. If they smashed the box, they would find a coffin inside. They had to smash the box to get to the radio. A note would be inside, chastising the person for giving into wrath. This was stupid. We all know that gingers don't have souls, so Satan would be not f***ing with Rick Astley. And the marketing team didn't seem to care about that though. They were too busy being caught up with their next stunt involving the Circle of Greed. $200 checks were sent to various gaming journalists and critics. The checks would arrive in an ornate box with a note that said, "In Dante's Inferno, greed is a two-headed beast. Hoarding wealth feeds on the beast, and squandering it satiates the other. By cashing this check, you succumb to avarice by hoarding filthy lucre, but by not cashing it, you waste it, and therefore surrender to prodigality. Prodigality. Make your choice and suffer the consequences for your sin. And scoff not, for consequences are imminent." And one blogger from Kotaku burned it and asked EA to donate the money to charity. The website's readers asked the impeccable question, why didn't you just donate it yourself? A joystick writer read their minds, cashed it, and put it towards charity. It was a women's charity and a likely response to EA's previous stunt at Comic-Con. And it was mentioned that the line between promotion and bribery had been thoroughly crossed. The whole thing drowning like a lead weight. Yet they would still come up with two last stunts. And the first one is one I genuinely enjoy. They created an ad for a fake game called Mass, We Pray. It was a parody Wii-like game with motion controls. You pray and lead church sermons all in hopes of saving your family's wretched souls.
Introducing Mass, We Pray. The wireless cross controller detects movement in 3 dimensions. Every twist of the hand and nuance of a blessing is recreated on screen. Use it to participate in more than 24 unique and exhilarating ceremonies. Be sure to try them all. The more you play, the more grace points you collect.
I was laughing really hard at this one. If you tried to order a copy of the game, the website would call you a heretic and then play the trailer for Dante's Inferno. There would also be a link to accompany the app, Go to Hell. The app would let you condemn one of your friends to one of the 9 circles of hell and either vote to punish or absolve them. You can also torment them with stuff like beast massage or succubus castration. And you know what? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but you talked me into it. I'll take 2. But this would not be the last of their forays into augmented reality. They'd also set up a commercial for a fake company. It would be called Hawk Panther, which, sweet band name for anyone looking. The ad would encourage the viewers to visit their website if they wanted to steal their best friend's girlfriend. and if any covetous friend happened to click on the link, a message would appear. It would say, "Treachery! Thou art condemned to the 9th circle. Thou hast broken the bonds of trust with thy kindred. Even conspiring to stealeth thy best friend's soulmate is the worst kind of mortal offense imaginable. You shall pay for thy treachery by spending an eternity immersed up to your face, the place where shame shows itself in the putrid, frozen waters of hell." Honestly, if they had kept up with this kind of stuff in isolation, it wouldn't have been so bad. But when you're welcoming open harassment to people who didn't ask for it, I think it's time to reassess your ideals. And did the marketing pay off for the game? It sold around 200,000 copies in the first month of release and is sitting above average on Metacritic. And it dwindled pretty hard from there. And I remember the consensus around the game being that it looked like a generic God of War clone with cool monsters and cool environments. I only knew one person who was chomping at the bit to play this game, but he also went crazy for Bullet Witch. And I remember it being okay. The spectacle being bigger than the gameplay itself. Next though, we have a game I've played a metric butt ton and has its own messed up controversy. Buckle up! Remember how I said that Acclaim had one more trick up their sleeve? Well, here it is in all of its cindering glory. It's 2002 and the iPod has been shuffled again. You have an arcade-style racing game where you can smash into people and wreck them off the track. There's also the greatest game mode that has ever been added to a game. You drive into the middle of a traffic scene with a button to explode yourself and cause as much damage as possible. And yes, it is as awesome as it sounds.
Oh my god.
So how do you market this one? And no, a 40-car pileup won't work. Would you pay for someone's speeding ticket? This is what Acclaim offered to do in the UK. For one day, October 11th, Acclaim reimbursed you for any speeding ticket that you received. Racing to pick up the game, of course. The Department of Transport didn't think it was so cute. The spokesman said, "If they want to foot what is likely to be a hefty bill, that is their choice, but we cannot condone something that so obviously encourages people to break the law and do something dangerous. Basically, they are encouraging people to speed down and break the law. I just hope for their sakes that none of these people ended up knocking down a child." Acclaim would plead innocence, of course. They said they wanted to ease their financial pain a bit, all in the name of promoting this breakneck game, like they were doing for the families of dying loved ones. Spokesman Sean White would say, "Taking the side of people who enjoy driving fast, it, therefore, seemed quite logical to offer people caught by camera something that would make them feel okay about it." Where's the logic? Somewhere in this region, I gather. Acclaim quickly rescinded the offer, but quietly tucked their tails between their legs, until 8 years later with Turok. The game would do quite well despite this. It was an 88 out of 100 on Metacritic, and it looks like it sold almost 1 million copies. It never quite reached the success of its sequel. And look, I get it. The Last Stunt was a bit of a crash and burn. What if I told you you'd kill for the next one? Fast forward a decade to 2012. You have the 5th installment of a long-running series coming out. You play as a genetically engineered hitman known as Agent 27, assassinating targets with clever tactics and carrying a metric ton of turtle wax. You'll change outfits, set traps, and shoot faces. Except in this one, you're going to be mainly shooting faces. This one is going to be more accessible. So how we pitching this one, big dog? Oh, so you want to do an escalating series of PR stunts that somehow wins over the core fan base they're screwing over, but also alienates the new people playing their game? Perfect, cause that shit is on the menu. Square Enix showed off a level at the Montreal International Game Summit of 2011. Fans of the series hated the new run and gun style of gameplay. They decided to release a trailer to win them over. And while I find it pretty sweet, a lot of people had a problem with him mowing down sexy nuns. The director of marketing at Square Enix would say that he was surprised by the controversy. He said, "In general, you'd imagine any controversy provides increased awareness of the game's existence. So if you're just looking from an awareness standpoint, maybe it's helpful in spite of the tone of some of the comments and debates that went on. But I don't think that it was something that we want to exploit. That sort of awareness." which if you can read between the BS, it sounds like they got exactly what they wanted. More awareness. They also put out this shocking ad. It's a woman with a bullet hole in her head. Most find it appalling and tasteless. I of course enjoyed the cheekiness, but you also have to know your audience, and putting this out for the mainstream ad seems like a bad idea. Square Enix then pushed it too far. They released an app for Facebook back when they were the rage. I remember Farmville and all the requests from you dingleberries. And as the app will tell you, it wants you to put a hit on your friends. There'd be a DOS-style interface where you will search for one of your Facebook friends. From there, you would select a wonderful identifier from a list of these classy options. You got awful makeup, ginger hair, an annoying laugh, a strange odor, big ears, a muffin top, hairy legs, small tits. Then you select a reason for why they're being assassinated. One of the options is that she's cheating on her partner. And when sent, they would receive a link that would say, "I hope you get killed by a hitman." If clicked on, it would come up with a video of Agent 47 preparing a sniper rifle. He would study the Facebook profile of the target while the text of the assassination message would be read aloud. Agent 47 would then fire a single shot indicating the job was finished. And while it seems more tame, especially with the Hitman Absolution tag in the link, you can see how this could go wrong quick. Mainly because it was seen as an outlet for bullying. When you're so blatantly digging up people's negative qualities cold and indirectly, it'll come off bad. This was a time when a lot of children, let's say, found their own game over screens and dealing with cyberbullying. With wounds still fresh, people were not happy. The less tech savvy may have thought a bid was actually being made on their life. Square Enix pulled the app and issued an apology. They would say, "Earlier today, we launched an app based around Hitman Absolution that allowed you to place virtual hits on your Facebook friends. These hits would only be viewable by the recipient and could only be sent to confirmed friends. We were wide of the mark with the app, and following feedback from the community, we decided the best thing to do was remove it completely and quickly. This we've now done. We're sorry for any offense caused by this." This would be the brainchild of an advertising agency known as Ralph. They won an Emmy, so isn't that swell? The game did pretty okay. It was met with decent reviews and sold 3.6 million copies at retail. It still didn't reach the numbers they had hoped, especially with their crackpot scheme. And while that series was big, there was even more of a Titanic series that had been involved in a controversy. And while the Hitman app allowed you to pay for someone to die, what if the next advertisement let you buy someone already dead? The next game is one I think you've probably heard of.
Resident Evil.
It's 2005 and the 5th installment of the series is coming out. Chris and his partner Sheva are investigating Umbrella experiments in Africa, and all hell breaks loose. So how would you sell this zombie shooter? Did you say a scavenger hunt? Oh, that's good. Maybe you can uncover clues that lead to a fake umbrella holding where swag is handed out. Oh, it's not brutal enough? Oh, you want them to look for human body parts. Capcom with Monument PR is back in the UK again, specifically in London. Capcom would advertise this email address where scavengers would receive their clues on March 10th. They would have to roam Trafalgar Square looking for the body parts. Those who found them were standing on Westminster Bridge and shouting, "Kijiju!"
Bless you.
This is the name of the fictional city the game was set in. When they did, they'd receive some points. The one with the most points was awarded a holiday for 2 in Africa. They had until 11 a.m. and the various parts equaled to different points. 2 points for arms, 2 points for legs, 3 for torsos, and 5 for a head. More than 100 participants signed up, and about half of them made it to the event. Unfortunately, Capcom may have done too good of a job. The body parts were covered in chicken liver to enhance the realism. Random people found the parts too realistic and started calling the police. They soon arrived and asked the scavengers to disperse, leaving the event abandoned early. Looks like the PR team forgot where they hid all the body parts. 1 head, 2 torsos, and 6 limbs were still unaccounted for. and I wish I could have seen the looks on their faces in discovering the gruesome bits.
What's wrong with you, bro? What the heck?
But yeah, you could see why this would cause some concern despite how much fun it actually sounds to do. There was actually a winner for this contest. Steve Long, a 26-year-old IT consultant, won the trip. Could you imagine him bringing the head as carry-on?
Why are you running?
Capcom would take it even further for their next game, Resident Evil 6. This was 3 years later in 2012. It all began with 75 journalists from some of the biggest publishers receiving photos from 5 murder scenes. The scenes were photographed outside some of these media companies. They actually got St. Bartholomew's Hospital Pathology Museum to help recreate the scenes to help make them as real as possible. They'd also send fake autopsy reports detailing how each person died in a scientifically accurate breakdown. These also relate to how someone might die in Resident Evil 6. An even wider net was cast after that. 125 journalists would be mailed fresh animal products from a local supermarket, except they had been relabeled as stuff like human thigh steaks. They'd also receive red and green herbs in a pot, which, if you know Resident Evil, you know.
Smoke weed.
Then, in a final wave of letters, Capcom sent out invitations to a butcher shop, and not just any butcher shop. This one was known as Wesker & Son, and I think you can see where this is going. It would be a human meat market. Fake bits of man meat would be hanging around the store. Props made by Dapper Cadaver. They'd also have their own massive meat that you could buy. It was animal meat, but reconstructed to look like human parts. They got a food artist named Sharon Baker to do all the designs. She even got to do a meat model of herself. And this horror show was created by Emma Thomas, who is more known by her moniker in PR circles, Miss Cakehead. And this kind of thing seems to be her jam. She set up a fake Alcatraz hotel for the launch of the Alcatraz TV show and did a food truck serving brain burgers for The Walking Dead. And she said that zombies were pastiche at this point and wanted to do something different. And I think she achieved that. 200 visitors would come to the shop each day that it had opened and generated significant buzz. And I appreciate Emma's honesty. She was pretty upfront about this stuff. It is meant more to be edgy and draw attention for that reason. And this may be why the whole event became more of a morbid curiosity than a large group of people waving pitchforks. It was also much more contained than any of the other stunts, regardless of someone finding it in bad taste. And this wouldn't be the last time this story appears in media. In 2016, a woman made a Facebook post accusing China of selling canned human meat to Africa. Barbara Akusa Obayagi would say, "Please send this to all your contacts. It's very important. Chinese people have started producing corned beef with their dead bodies and sending them to Africa. Please stay away from corned beef irrespective of brand, most especially in Africa and from Afro-Asian grocery shops." And she used the meat model of Sharon as her proof. African media outlets jumped on, saying that it was China's way of dealing with lack of space to bury their dead. Which, a wild assumption. China issued its own statement on the matter, saying, "Today, a local tabloid newspaper is openly spreading a rumor, claiming that the Chinese use human meat to make corned beef and sell it to Africa. This is completely a malicious slandering and vilification which is absolutely unacceptable to us. We hereby express our utmost anger and the strongest condemnation over such an act." People act like they've never had a little Blake Tartar before, and Capcom would pull one more stunt that same year. Miss Cakehead would be part of this one too. Capcom was promoting the other Resident Evil title they released that year, Resident Evil Revelations. To celebrate this title that takes place on a boat full of monsters, they decided to turn a pool into a Cannibal Corpse song.
This is a fun little song about shooting blood from your cock.
It was filled with blood. Well, not real blood. They would enhance the gore with fake body parts. Torsos, intestines, and other flesh knickknacks floated in the Crimson Pool. Fans could swim down to the murky bottom for prizes. Someone could easily mistake this as bobbing for apples. And Capcom was pretty proud of their endeavor. They would say, "Capcom is thrilled to be able to create the world's first blood swimming pool. Zombies have been kept very busy lately doing a variety of PR stunts, so rather than do the expected, we wanted to give them some time off for canal-side relaxation in London. And to non-zombies, the swimming pool will be shocking, gory, and an incredibly disturbing experience. A perfect way to show that survival horror is back with a bang for Resident Evil Revelations." And I really hope that's the First Blood swimming pool. If they know about more, the police might want to know. And the pool was full of 55 gallons of the red stuff. Or as Capcom put it, enough for 11,327 individuals. A new unit of measurement I'm using going forward. Grande, Finty, and Carl.
So good.
And Resident Evil 4 was a huge success. I remember everyone playing that game when it came out. And I imagine they thought these stunts would push its successors into the stratosphere. And while I find these kitschy and fun, taste notwithstanding, I don't know how much more fervor they would have drummed up for these games. And I remember everyone not being happy about the new action-oriented direction the series was going in, and the sales would slowly teeter out until they reset with Resident Evil 7. But while Capcom was serving up packaged bits of flesh, Sony decided to serve up something far more fresh. So now it's 2007. Steve Jobs had just announced the iPhone, and you're hating your fresh new Windows Vista install. Sony is a massive success with a little indie game you've probably never heard of, God of War, and some of you may know it by its current iteration. And for those of you under a rock, play as Kratos, a man hell-bent on getting revenge on the gods for the death of his family. One by one, you'll commit brutal deicide against those you once worshipped. This time, you're demoralizing even more of them. So how do you make the masses want to play this god-getter? Maybe erecting a fake statue or putting on a Greek tragedy in a theater? Oh, you want to do more of a bacchanalia. Sounds good. Who doesn't love a little party and getting white girl wasted on some wine? Oh, you were thinking about something a bit more extreme? Oh, there's going to be a sacrifice. Sorry, my grandmother just dropped acid and stole a busload of penguins. I gotta go deal with that. You know, family business. So it's the night of the event. You've shown up with the attendees to people in togas and other traditional garb. As you walk through the various rooms, there's quite a few sights to behold. Topless women dropping grapes in attendees' mouth like they were hedonism bought. A pit of snakes hissing and wriggling, just waiting to be grabbed. Knives being brandished and thrown at targets. But it isn't until the feast that the real events begin.
The sacrifice.
The scapegoat is brought in with an air of pomp. A knife is brought out as those onlooking whip themselves into a fervor. The knife is raised into the air in front of the cheering crowd and then brought down. There is a slaughter. The attendees are made to test their mettle. They must reach in and consume some of the still warm entrails. And as you go to lift the slimy viscera into your mouth hole, it all dissipates into smoke. 'Cause none of this actually happened. The Daily Mail got a hold of one of the promotional pamphlets. It was drenched in hyperbole to get journalists to attend. None of their people actually went to the event. Footage exists so we can see it was more tame than it was reported. The live snakes and knife throwing were all games of skill that attendees could play. And the women were wearing body paint to hide any revealing bits, making it not quite the scandal. And as for the goat, it was already dead. The goat was butchered at a shop beforehand. A traditional Greek meat soup was served in bowls to those in attendance. That's what was actually inside the goat. There were no live entrails or anything. It was brought back to the butcher after they had finished. And I could understand people not wanting to see a butchered animal sitting right in front of their faces, but everything was blown far out of proportion for the articles. This wouldn't stop Sony from apologizing and recalling 80,000 issues of the official PlayStation magazine that ran that month. In their apology, they would say, "We recognize the use of a dead goat was in poor taste and fell below the high standards of conduct we set for ourselves. We are conducting an inquiry to establish the circumstances behind the event in order to ensure this does not happen again. We apologize to anyone offended by the article in the OPSM." None of this seemed to affect reviews or sales too much. Most understand this was more sensationalized news than something to actually be upset about. The game would go on to sell a boatload, and Kratos would find himself in 1.5 demi-men. And there isn't much to say except that Sony got exactly what they were asking for. They definitely got eyes on the event of the game, and just not on the terms that they were looking for. It seemed they learned their lesson and haven't promoted any of their games in quite the same way. But there's still time. Ghost of Yotei could still have a line of guests commit a little Sudoku. The longest intestine drop wins. So we learned today that marketing is a horrible, dehumanizing thing that turns us all into experimental rats. Or maybe they think life will really be better with that second special edition PlayStation. Sure. They're looking for small brain triggers to make you aware that this product exists, to great lengths as you can see. Now, I tend to hate this kind of mental manipulation. I believe a product should stand on its own. Games are just art that we can interact with. But what if the problem with the advertising of the art is less in the promotion and more in how and why it's being promoted? This leads me to my next complicated topic, something I've really wanted to talk about. Hell, I thought about making a whole new channel to talk about it because I didn't see it fitting here. But with this video, life finds a way. I love fighting games. I've loved them since I had the Championship Edition of Street Fighter on Genesis. As someone who grew up on comics and Saturday morning cartoons, the larger-than-life characters constantly battling it out didn't seem too far off, and I've been keeping up as much as I can since. And one of those games that I indulged in on the way was Garou: Mark of Wolves, a sequel to SNK's version of Street Fighter known as Fatal Fury. It was a cult classic, contributed by the vibrant and bombastic character designs, the amazing animations, and the snappy combat with fun systems. Like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, you don't hear many people talking shit about this game, so it was a bit of a surprise it never got a sequel. That is, until now. The original came out in 1997, and it seems they had ideas for a sequel back in 2005, and it was said about 70% was complete, but nothing happened with it. Then, 20 years later, we got a teaser. And I was waiting in quiet reservation before I got my hopes up. Then I got to see the game. It was, for the most part, everything I had hoped for. We got returning characters, the same bombastic, bold-ass art style, and even some different but interesting mechanics. I was chomping at the bit as I watched content creators in the FGC keep talking about how similar it feels to Street Fighter 6, a game so good that it absolved Capcom of whatever this tripe was.
Like something from a video game.
Or a dream.
Or a nightmare.
Also, a game that I had been playing a ton. This was quickly becoming a fighting game I had to grab. They were hitting all the right buttons. So what could go wrong? Well, this.
Let's have some fun. For the love of the game.
As someone who has played Mortal Kombat games, seeing people you have seen in the real world is not out of the question. But there's a huge difference. These are characters. At that, these are action movie characters. The same kind that the cast of MK is meant to pay homage to. A Carl Weathers skin for Jax was perfect because Jax is Carl Weathers. But Ronaldo isn't a character. He's himself. A world-famous Portuguese footballer, transported to a shonen-style world full of wacky martial artists. So how does he fit? Why not take the opportunity to expand the cast with a new character? Maybe even tie their backstory into an old one. He feels so strangely out of place. I've never heard of this man ever having ties to video games or the FGC. It was weird. If Ronaldo was a surprise, the next one would be jaw-dropping.
Here's a ticket to my show tonight. I hope you can make it.
This is the trailer for Salvatore Ganacci. I would not be remiss if you didn't know who he was. A Bosnian DJ with a decent fan base, but nothing close to knocking on the door of most of the superstars out there now. And I'm going to be real, I really like his music and music videos. The music is pumping and catchy. The video almost feels like parodies of an A24 film. They feel weird and off, but kind of silly and slapstick at the same time. He has built an awesome character for his brand, but also, why? Why this guy? Why is he popping and locking all over the cast versus a returning character like this one? And once you see who's footing the bill for the game, it becomes apparent pretty quick. This is Mohammed bin Salman, and I'm just gonna call him MBS or Bonesaw for reasons we'll get to later. And I have to give a little history lesson on this guy for some perspective. He was born into a lot of money, like an unthinkable amount of money. His father would eventually gain power, and even though that succession would most likely go to one of his half-brothers, he couldn't have that. In a Night of Long Knives style situation, Bonesaw would imprison his political contenders. He'd invite the richest, most powerful men in Saudi Arabia to a meeting. While there, he'd gain control of their financial accounts, forcing them to back him. If not, well then, you know. And this is how he got started. So far, his biggest asset has been his social awareness. He gave women a few more freedoms despite going against the accepted religious code. And this was not as altruistic as it seems. These are the clerics. They enforce the laws according to their religion. The power is given to them by the house that MBS belongs to. In turn, the clerics support the house, which provides more influence and power. He also erodes the power of the clerics, making them look less credible as people oppose their laws. And as we'll continue to see, this man understands influence and power. But first, murder! Besides all the human rights violations, the most egregious act that he engages in is political executions, going strong with 81 last year, and the most famous of these is the one the CIA has accused him of delegating. Jamal Khashoggi was lured into the Saudi consulate where he was murdered and then chopped into pieces with a bone saw. Reference. MBS denies that he gave the order, but says he takes responsibility. He also says he can't know what all of his people are doing at all times, not taking into the fact that someone going for a surprise bathroom break versus a Washington Journal writer getting quartered are very different circumstances. I think that would be a very big no-no. When asked why he was killed, this was his answer.
What kind of threat is a newspaper columnist to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that he would deserve to be brutally murdered?
There is no threat from any journalist. The threat to Saudi Arabia is from such actions against a Saudi journalist. This heinous crime that took place in a Saudi consulate.
Or lack thereof. You notice he never actually says why the journalist was murdered, only that the murder is the bigger issue, and we all know why. He said bad things about that man. That man did not like that. The other man is now in pieces. It's not rocket surgery. So now we get to the point where Bonesaw wants to change that image around. He's in his mid-30s and loves video games. How would one go about combining these? Would you start buying up esports organizations and even host your own competition on your very own soil? Soil that some people are afraid to touch because of the bigoted and prejudiced views present upon it. But hey man, none of that matters. Just a normal gamer like us. He's playing his gold-plated PS5 Pro in the most expensive mansion ever bought, sitting in front of a $450 million painting. Just one of us, right? Bonesaw was already accused of sports washing before getting into esports. Sports washing is the idea that you're trying to wash away all the bad press and stuff you've done by giving out enjoyable entertainment that makes people either forgive or forget the bad shit that's been done. He made the thing I like, so he can't be bad because I like the thing. We see it time and time again with musicians and content creators. We as humans have an unfortunate habit of taking pieces of art and making them part of our identity. And ooh-wee, I am there with ya. All of my tattoos are from some IP, so it can be harder to untangle. And to admit that the creator is wrong is to admit that the creation may be wrong, and so we accept that part of our personality associated with the property can also be flawed. A brain can do some incredible gymnastics to protect itself. And all this was to say that we're prone to forgive people who put out stuff that we like. This guy's planning on that. Hoping for it even. His response to being told that he's sports washing is very telling.
Well, if it's sport washing gonna increase my GDP by 1%, and then I will continue doing sport washing.
You're okay with that term?
I don't care. I have 1% growth of GDP from sport, and I'm aiming for another 1.5%. Call it whatever you want. We're gonna get that 1.5%. It's like beating Hollywood today. So one of the streamer on the esport, he have more than 2 billion views, more than the biggest Hollywood movie.
It's amazing.
So it's serious.
So what does all this have to do with Fatal Fury? Well, this man is the owner of Misk, who is now the owner of SNK. A lot of his money bankrolls the operation. And see Mr. Football Man here? Well, he's on the team for Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, the same place where the esports finals were held. And what about the Music Man? Well, he happens to be Bonesaw's favorite DJ, playing often for MBS, even opening night for the City of Wolves game. He'd also regularly wine and dine at his palatial mansion. Bosom buddies, it seems. This could really help a budding DJ really grow his career, while also saying that MBS isn't so bad, cause hey, Salvatore likes him. And this could all be conjecture and coincidence, but there does seem to be a lot of coincidence going on. And as you can see, this is all just a form of advertisement, less for a game and more for a government, one headed by one man. And it's because of this that I have complicated feelings for the game. It was a bit of a roller coaster watching one of my favorite people in the FGC, Maximilian Dude, be completely off-put by Salvatore, but eventually come around due to his brand and the time and care they put into the character.
Who the hell is this guy? Who? What? All I can say is that I'm just confused. Bro, who the hell is this guy? What? Who in the holy shit is this guy? Within 24 hours after witnessing this dude, and it started to make like a little bit more sense. Like, this dude is straight up not what I thought.
He may also have his bias, which, no shade on Max. I fucking love him and I appreciate everything he's done for the community. And it makes me wonder if that time and care went in because the developers genuinely cared or if it was pressed upon by a fearmonger. It does not take away from the technical skill and creativity that was brought. The amount of detail they put in with all the references make it seem like they did care deeply. But who was it? And the fact that I have to ask is what bothers me most. It sits like a black stain on the whole affair. I want the company to be successful. They have given me so many good memories over the years, and it's obvious they have passionate people that want to make games. But at what greater cost? It's hard to quantify power through influence as opposed to monetary means, but the gains can be far more substantial, especially for someone with all the money in the world who's trying to leave the waning oil industry aside. In a world where your vote is made through your dollar, it creates a perplexing situation. Do you support creators doing their best in making an awesome product knowing this man may use it to take people off this earth and will only give him more power? And I still can't answer it. I know people are going to ask, why should I care? And I'm someone who feels the indifference of good people allows the will of evil to thrive. It signals that the behavior is okay. That's the messed up part for me in all of this. I love the art. I consider myself an artist. I understand how hard art is, and to sell someone one of your ideas and hope they like it enough to give you money for it, and to also hope that they don't want to change the art so much that it's no longer a representation of what you want. I respect creators who have walked away from something because it was made less than their vision. But it's hard to be able to get paid for something that many people see as a free commodity. Artists have had to compromise for a long time to get what they want made. I know countless stories of people putting out busty women who are almost completely naked to pay for their dream project. And it's not really what they want, but it pays the bills. And this makes me feel for the compromises being made by the SNK team. And the video had not come out while I was making this, but it seems like it did since it took a bit longer than expected, as per usual. And so far the sales don't seem to be great, which not sure if this due to MBS being involved or just the fact that, you know, it wasn't probably going to do well at all anyway since it was a Fatal Fury game, which have never sold extremely well. And unfortunately, the head of the studio also stepped down due to the low sales, knowing that he was the real push behind this and the one that really wanted to make it happen. So it just makes it even that much worse for pretty much everything surrounding the game at this point. But I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. And I saw a lot of videos on Salvatore, but not much wanting to talk more about the political aspects behind it. I mean, it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk so much about it. Anyone else give a shit about the whims of a dictator? If not, I don't blame you. It's complicated and has nothing to do with you. But it might though. He continues to get chummier with world leaders. And I imagine SNK is also not putting the brakes on games or DLC. So we'll have to see if any of this might continue to be propaganda for a bloody prince looking for a quick wash. But I appreciate you making it to the end of this. Thank you, and I'll always be watching.